My name is David Ramirez, and at 35 years old, I was a dedicated U.S. Marine, serving my country with unwavering pride while struggling to balance the demands of military life with my family back home. Born in a small Texas town to immigrant parents, I joined the Marines right out of high school, seeking purpose and stability. Over the years, I'd been deployed to hotspots around the world, but my heart always pulled me back to California, where we settled near Camp Pendleton. The base was like a second home, buzzing with activity, but it often meant long hours away from those I loved most. Married to Maria for 12 years, our relationship was built on love, forged through challenges. She was my high school sweetheart, a strong-willed woman who supported my career despite the hardships. Maria worked as a nurse at the local hospital, her shifts erratic and exhausting, yet she always managed to keep our household running smoothly. We had two amazing kids who brought light to our days. Carlos, our 9-year-old son, full of energy and curiosity, always asking about my missions with wide-eyed wonder, and Sophia, our 6-year-old daughter, a bundle of joy with her mother's smile and an infectious laugh that could melt away the stress of any day. Our home was a modest, cozy house on a quiet street near the base, with a small backyard where the kids played under the California sun. I'd spend my off-duty weekends there, grilling burgers or fixing up the old swing set, trying to make up for the time lost to deployments. The living room was filled with family photos. Us at the beach, Carlos's first bike ride, Sophia's birthday parties, reminders of the life I fought to protect. But beneath the surface, worries gnawed at me. The mortgage payments that seemed to climb each month, Maria's fatigue from juggling work and parenting alone during my absences, and the fear that the kids might resent my frequent goodbyes. My days as a Marine were regimented and intense, starting with early morning PT runs along the ocean cliffs, the salty air invigorating as the sun rose over the Pacific. Drills followed, marksmanship training, tactical maneuvers, and team-building exercises that forged unbreakable bonds with my unit brothers. We were a tight-knit group, sharing stories over MREs or in the barracks, laughing off the dangers to stay sane. I'd lead small teams on reconnaissance simulations, my role as a sergeant demanding precision and leadership. The camaraderie was what kept me going, that sense of brotherhood in the face of uncertainty. Yet, even in the routine, doubts crept in. I'd worry about the toll on my body, the aches from years of carrying heavy packs, the scars from minor injuries that never fully healed. And then there were the emotional burdens, flashbacks from past deployments, the friends I'd lost, making me question if I was truly present for my family. Maria and I would talk late into the night when I was home, her hand in mine, discussing dreams of a quieter life after my service ended. But bills loomed, the kids' school supplies, car repairs, unexpected medical costs from Maria's long hours. Faith was something I held on to loosely, a thread from my Catholic upbringing that had frayed over time. As a kid, I'd attend Mass with my parents, kneeling in prayer for safety and guidance. In the Marines, it became sporadic, quick prayers before jumping into a helo or facing live fire, asking for protection for my team and family. But mostly I relied on my training, my rifle, and my instincts. God felt distant amid the chaos of war zones, though I'd mutter thanks after safe returns. Looking back, it was a superficial connection, missing the depth that could have anchored me through the storms. That all changed during a routine training exercise in late 2024, just as the holidays approached, and I dreamed of surprising the kids with gifts. The day was clear, the California sky a brilliant blue, as my unit geared up for a standard live fire drill on the range. We were practicing grenade throws, the kind of exercise we'd done 100 times, shouts of commands echoing across the field. I lobbed mine toward the target, but something went wrong, a malfunction. The grenade detonating prematurely with a deafening blast that shook the ground. The explosion hurled me backward like a rag doll, shrapnel tearing through my gear and flesh, pain ripping through my body like wildfire consuming dry brush. My vision blurred, the world tilting as blood filled my mouth, the acrid smell of smoke and cordite choking the air. Comrades rushed over, their voices distant yells. "Man down! Medic!" But the agony was overwhelming. A white-hot surge that crushed my chest, my heart stuttering to a halt amid the wreckage. In that instant, I slipped into darkness, unaware that this tragic mishap would shatter my ordinary existence and open a profound doorway to eternity, transforming me forever. As the excruciating pain from the blast began to ebb away, like mist dissolving under the rising sun after a stormy night, I felt an inexplicable lightness wash over me. It was as if my entire being was shedding the heavy armor and gear I'd carried for years in the Marines, freeing me from the weight of flesh, bone, and burdens that had anchored me to the earth for so long. The transition was seamless, almost gentle, defying the brutal violence of the explosion that had just shattered my world. One moment, I was trapped in the agony of shrapnel and smoke on the training ground. The next, I was liberated, untethered, rising effortlessly into the air above the scene of devastation, my spirit soaring like an eagle released from captivity. Suddenly, there I was, hovering several feet above the chaotic aftermath on the range, gazing down with a detachment that surprised even me in that ethereal state. The scorched earth was marked by the crater from the grenade, my gear scattered like forgotten relics. Medics swarmed my lifeless body, their faces tense under helmets, shouting for evac as they checked for vitals. "No pulse! Get the chopper in now!" one yelled, while another applied pressure to wounds. Smoke curled lazily from the site, mingling with the scent of gunpowder that I could no longer smell. Flashing lights from approaching vehicles painted the scene in urgent reds and blues, casting long shadows on my comrades who knelt nearby, their camaraderie now turned to frantic action. Yet, in this out-of-body vantage point, there was no fear clawing at my insides, no terror of the unknown that I might have expected after years facing combat's horrors. The agony that had consumed me seconds before was completely gone, replaced by a profound peace that permeated every fiber of my non-physical being. It was like being enveloped in a warm, soft blanket woven from the purest calm, shielding me from the cold winds of panic and despair that had often haunted my deployments. The chaos unfolding below, the shouting medics, the gathering unit members with radios crackling, the twisted remnants of the exercise that symbolized the abrupt end of my routine, seemed distant, almost insignificant in the grand scheme of things. As I continued to ascend, drawn upward by an invisible force that felt both gentle and inexorable, the training ground below began to blur and transform before my eyes. The sharp edges of the range barriers, the dusty paths, and the scattered equipment softened into a swirling tapestry of colors and lights, like an abstract painting coming to life with vibrant strokes. Earth tones of the California soil merged with the blues of the sky. Greens from distant hills danced with the oranges of the setting sun, filtering through smoke, all blending into a mesmerizing mosaic that defied earthly description. This wasn't the heaven I'd vaguely pictured from childhood Bible stories, with pearly gates and golden streets. It was something more subtle, a transitional realm beyond the confines of the physical world, where gravity held no power and time lost its rigid grip. Time itself dissolved. Minutes could have been hours, or perhaps mere seconds. It didn't matter anymore. The linear progression of past, present, and future melted into an eternal now, where everything existed in harmonious simultaneity, free from the ticking clocks that had dictated my military schedule. In this elevated state, fragments of my life began to surface in my consciousness, not as a frantic life review filled with judgment, but as gentle, poignant reminders of what I was leaving behind, each one infused with warmth and clarity. I could see my family's faces flashing vividly in my mind's eye, each image crystal clear and pulsing with emotion. There was Maria, back at our cozy home near the base, perhaps cooking dinner in the kitchen, while glancing worriedly at the clock, wondering why I hadn't called yet. Unaware of the catastrophe, she might have been humming a lullaby from her childhood, her brow slightly furrowed with that familiar mix of strength and concern. Tears would come later, I knew, hot and unrelenting as the news reached her, breaking her resilient heart. Then Carlos and Sophia, playing innocently in the small backyard under the golden California sun. Carlos kicking a soccer ball with determined energy. Sophia giggling as she chased butterflies or drew chalk art on the patio. They were oblivious to the horror unfolding miles away on the range, their laughter echoing in my thoughts like a sweet melody that tugged gently at my heartstrings, a reminder of the pure joy they brought to my often chaotic life. The thought of their grief, of Maria explaining to them that Daddy might not come home from work this time, sent a subtle wave of sorrow through me, a soft tug that honored the deep bonds I'd forged through years of love, sacrifice, and shared moments. Yet, even as this grief brushed against me like a soft breeze on a calm sea, it was swiftly enveloped and transformed by an overwhelming sense of love that permeated the very air around me, or whatever passed for air in this luminous realm. This love was not the conditional affection I'd known on earth, tied to duties, reciprocation, or fleeting moments. It was boundless, unconditional, a radiant force that embraced every part of my soul without a hint of judgment. It was as if the darkness of my deepest fears, the gnawing anxiety over endless deployments that kept me from family nights, the heated arguments with Maria over my absences that left lingering resentment, the nagging doubts about my worth as a father and husband amid the scars of war, dissolved into absolute nothingness, evaporating like morning dew under the sun's first rays. These shadows, which had loomed so large in my daily military existence, now seemed trivial, mere illusions cast by the limited perspective of mortal life, fading in the face of this infinite compassion. As I floated higher still, the light that had been a distant glimmer began to intensify, piercing the veil of this in-between space with a softness that was both inviting and irresistible. It wasn't a harsh, blinding glare like the desert sun during patrols, but a warm, golden glow that beckoned like a lighthouse guiding a weary ship through fog, promising safe harbor. I felt drawn toward it instinctively, like a moth fluttering toward a gentle flame, not out of compulsion, but out of pure, joyful attraction that filled me with anticipation. The light promised solace, deep understanding, and an end to all striving, a release from the constant battles I'd fought, both externally and within. In that transcendent moment, a deep realization dawned within me. Death, which I'd subconsciously feared as a cold, final oblivion after seeing comrades fall, was not an end at all. It was merely a doorway, a threshold to something infinitely greater, where the love awaiting on the other side was vast enough to erase every trace of earthly pain and suffering. This love was the essence of existence itself, a divine energy that connected all things, my unit's brotherhood, my family's warmth, even the strangers I'd protected, in a web of eternal unity. As I approached the light, I felt myself becoming one with it, my spirit expanding, ready to step into the unknown with open arms, leaving behind the weights of regret and fear that had defined my mortal journey. The ascent continued, and with each passing moment, though time was irrelevant here, the details of the physical world faded further into irrelevance. The sounds of the medics' shouts became a faint hum, then silence. The colors of the range merged into a unified whole, a pulsating orb of life energy that was the earth itself, teeming with souls interconnected in ways I'd never fathomed. I could sense the web of compassion rippling out. The medics' urgent efforts not just as protocol, but as expressions of human care. My unit's worry mixed with resolve. Even Maria's distant intuition that something was wrong, drawing her to pray instinctively. This perspective shift was profound, revealing how my life, with all its disciplined routines and quiet desperations, was part of a larger tapestry woven by divine hands. The peace deepened with every rise, the love intensified like a growing symphony, and I surrendered fully to the pull, knowing that whatever lay ahead in this radiant expanse was not to be feared, but embraced with the trust I'd placed in my team during missions. As the light grew brighter, enveloping me completely in its embrace, I reflected on the simplicity of it all. The illusions of control I'd chased through ranks and medals paled here, where true security was inherent, a birthright of the soul unbound by uniform or duty. The fears that had defined me, physical tolls from service, emotional voids from absences, existential doubts amid chaos, were mere shadows fleeing before the dawn of this eternal day. And as I neared the threshold, the love became almost tangible, a living presence that whispered assurances without words. You are safe in my care. You are loved beyond measure. You are home, warrior, in the arms of grace. As I drifted deeper into the radiant light that enveloped me, like a mother's tender embrace after years apart, a figure began to emerge from its glowing core, materializing with a grace that defied all earthly understanding. He was tall and serene, his posture exuding a quiet authority rooted not in force, but in boundless wisdom and compassion that seemed to flow from his very being. His eyes held the vast depth of endless oceans, reflecting every emotion I'd ever known: fear, joy, regret, yet filtering them through a lens of pure, unjudging love that soothed my soul's deepest scars. His presence radiated an unfiltered love so profound, it felt as if the air itself pulsed with warmth, a living energy that reached into the hidden corners of my spirit, healing wounds I hadn't realized I carried. I knew instantly, without a shadow of doubt, that this was Jesus, though he bore no crown of thorns, no halo of gold, and made no thunderous proclamations or celestial fanfare. He simply was, existing in a state of perfect peace, his form glowing softly like sunlight, piercing storm clouds after days of relentless rain, casting a golden hue that banished all remnants of the darkness I'd known in war. His smile was warmer than any embrace I'd ever felt on earth, gentler than Maria's hugs after a long deployment, more comforting than my kids' laughter, conveying acceptance, forgiveness, and joy in a single curve of his lips that wrapped around my spirit like a shawl on a cold night, offering solace beyond words. There was no judgment in his gaze, no stern reckoning of my life's missteps, the times I'd yelled at Maria in frustration, missed Carlos's soccer games, or doubted God amid battle's chaos. Instead, only an all-encompassing understanding and compassion pierced straight to my core, illuminating hidden corners of guilt and shame I'd buried deep. It was as if he saw every flaw, every failure, and yet loved me more for them, transforming what I'd seen as brokenness into a beautiful mosaic of growth and redemption. "David," he said softly, his voice resonating like gentle waves lapping at a peaceful shore, carrying the soothing cadence of a lullaby blended with the timeless wisdom of ages. "You are loved beyond measure. Walk with me." His words were an invitation, not a command, extended with open arms that promised companionship without condition. We began to move through a space that unfolded around us like a vast, eternal garden, blooming with life in ways that transcended anything I'd known on earth. Flowers of impossible hues, vibrant crimsons shimmering like rubies, blues deeper than the midnight sky, greens pulsing with vitality, sprouted from ground that felt soft yet solid beneath my spirit, though I had no physical feet to tread upon it. Towering trees whispered secrets in a breeze carrying scents of fresh rain and blooming jasmine, while streams of crystal-clear water wound through the landscape, their melodies harmonizing with the light that bathed everything in eternal dawn. Colors here were more vivid than any I'd seen, brighter than the California sunsets, more alive than the greens of Pendleton's hills, evoking emotions of joy and wonder that danced through my being like a soldier's first taste of peace. As we walked side by side, he placed a hand on my shoulder, a touch both ethereal and profoundly real, sending waves of healing energy cascading through me like a cleansing river, washing away years of battlefield grime. In that single contact, I felt every wound of my life begin to heal, not just the physical scars from shrapnel or training injuries, but the deeper, invisible ones etched into my soul. The regrets of harsh words to Maria during tense arguments, the guilt of missing Sophia's first steps because of a mission, the faith I'd let slip like sand through my fingers during long nights in foxholes, all these and more, the anger I'd harbored toward fallen comrades' fates, the pride that kept me from seeking help, lifted, dissolving into light as if they'd never held power over me. "Your weaknesses are not chains that bind you," he told me, his tone infused with a tenderness that made my spirit weep with relief, but opportunities for grace to shine through the cracks of your humanity. There was no condemnation in his words, no hint of disappointment or rebuke for the times I'd faltered. Only mercy flowed like a father's embrace welcoming a lost child home after a long war. It was as if he were saying, "I see you, David, all of you, and I love you still, more deeply than you can grasp." This mercy wasn't earned through medals or bravery. It was a freely given gift, wrapping around my imperfections like vines supporting a fragile bloom, turning frailty into a testament of strength. Then, he began to show me flashes of my life, not as a harsh judgment or a reel of failures meant to induce shame, but as a loving review designed to reveal the hidden beauty woven into my journey. These visions appeared before us like holographic scenes suspended in the air, vivid and immersive, allowing me to relive moments without the sting of regret. I saw myself shielding a younger recruit during a live fire drill, his grateful nod rippling outward as he later saved another life. Another flash, holding Carlos after a nightmare, whispering courage that planted seeds of resilience in his young heart, growing into a sturdy oak of character. Even the mundane, sharing coffee with Maria after a long shift, listening despite my exhaustion, were highlighted, showing how they wove threads of connection in our marriage, strengthening it against life's storms. Each small act of kindness, no matter how insignificant it seemed amidst the roar of battle or the silence of absence, rippled outward in waves of good, touching lives I'd never met, comrades I'd inspired, families I'd protected, creating a web of positivity that echoed through eternity, far beyond the confines of my military service. In return for this revelation, he urged me gently toward the practice of prayer, not as a rigid ritual performed out of obligation or fear in the face of danger, but as a lifeline to this endless, transformative love that surrounded us in the garden. Prayer is the quiet conversation of the soul, he explained, his eyes sparkling with an inner light that mirrored the vibrant hues around us, a bridge spanning the chasm between your warrior's heart and the divine source. He spoke of faith not as blind adherence to doctrine amidst the fog of war, but as a living trust, a surrender that connects the finite struggles of a soldier to the infinite expanse of divine love. Faith is the bridge, he said, gesturing to an invisible structure that seemed to materialize in the air, arching gracefully over a serene valley below, its span glowing with a soft radiance, connecting your heart to the divine essence. Through it, you find strength in vulnerability, turning what the world sees as weakness, your doubts, your scars, into conduits for grace that heal both you and others. His words resonated deeply, stirring something long dormant within me, a yearning for connection that I'd suppressed amid the noise of gunfire and the weight of command. As we continued our walk, the garden seemed to respond to his presence, blooming even more extravagantly, petals unfurling in synchronized dances of color and light, as if celebrating our journey together. He shared stories, not the parables I'd heard in childhood sermons, but personalized insights drawn from my own experiences as a Marine, reframed through the lens of divine love and mercy. He spoke of how humanity's collective struggles, wars born of misunderstanding, addictions stemming from unhealed trauma, divisions fueled by fear, were all opportunities for redemption, invitations to choose love over separation, even on the battlefield. In every heart, he said, pausing to touch a flower that bloomed brighter at his fingertip, its petals glowing with new life, there beats the rhythm of eternity, longing to align with the greater harmony of creation. Your life, David, with all its joys and sorrows, from the camaraderie of your unit to the quiet moments with your family, has been a preparation for this understanding, he continued, his voice a melody that lingered in the air like a hymn. There was an earnest sincerity in his delivery, a profound acceptance that embraced my human frailties, my anger, my pride, my moments of doubt, without excusing them, emphasizing that growth comes not from perfection, but from persistent turning toward the light of love and forgiveness. This acceptance was a balm, soothing the soldier's hardened edges, reminding me that mercy, not judgment, defined my worth. The encounter deepened my sense of being truly seen and cherished, flaws and all, no longer just the disciplined sergeant scrambling through life's battles, but a beloved child of the universe worthy of infinite love. He encouraged me to extend this same compassion to others, to Maria, whose sacrifices I'd often overlooked in my focus on duty, to Carlos and Sophia, whose innocent souls needed a father rooted in faith rather than fear, even to my unit brothers, whose burdens I'd shared but never fully understood. Love is the ultimate truth, he affirmed, his voice a lingering melody that seemed to weave into the garden's symphony. And in sharing it, you become a vessel for miracles, a light piercing the darkness of war and loss. As the garden's beauty intensified, mirroring the expanding peace within me, I realized this meeting wasn't just a fleeting vision, but an eternal imprint on my soul, reshaping how I would view my past, present, and future. The light around us grew even warmer, its golden glow expanding like a sunrise over the Pacific, preparing me for what was to come next, a revelation that would extend beyond my personal healing to the fate of the world itself, a call to action born from the love I'd experienced in this sacred space. Then, with a subtle shift in the atmosphere, as if the very fabric of the garden realm was bending to his will like a delicate canvas yielding to a master's gentle touch. Jesus led me to a vantage point that overlooked not just the vibrant flowers and whispering streams around us, but the entire expanse of the earth below, a visionary representation that transcended the limits of physical space and linear time. This overlook felt like a cosmic balcony suspended in the boundless ether, where the planet appeared as a glowing orb hanging in the vastness of space, its deep blue oceans swirling with life, its continents etched in greens and browns pulsating with the heartbeat of humanity's countless souls. This was no static snapshot of the present. It stretched and unfolded into the future, reaching beyond the year 2025, revealing itself like a sacred scroll unrolling at his quiet command, each section bathed in a soft, ethereal light that cast both shadows of impending trials and glimmers of potential renewal across the globe. The air around us hummed with an anticipatory energy, as if the visions themselves were living entities eager to impart their truths, their weight pressing gently on my spirit. What I witnessed in those unfolding scenes shook me to the core, stirring a tumultuous blend of awe at creation's scope, deep sorrow for humanity's struggles, and an urgent resolve that pierced deeper than any battlefield experience, compelling me to face the fragility and interconnectedness of all life. The visions began with an onslaught of turmoil, vast and unrelenting, painting a stark picture of a world teetering on the brink of self-destruction due to its own misguided choices. Wars raged across continents, not just with the roar of missiles and the crash of tanks that scarred the land with craters, but with insidious divisions festering deep within human hearts, fueled by pride and misunderstanding. I saw the Middle East, a region I'd patrolled, spiraling into a major conflict, its ancient cities reduced to rubble as nations clashed, their leaders blinded by ambition. Yet this chaos offered a chance for peace if hearts turned to prayer and reconciliation. The turmoil deepened with natural disasters, striking with ferocious intensity, nature's cry against humanity's neglect and exploitation reverberating through the earth. Massive earthquakes rattled urban centers, their foundations crumbling like sandcastles under a relentless tide, while floods swallowed coastal cities whole, waves crashing like divine judgments on concrete jungles built on reclaimed land. I watched homes vanish, livelihoods swept away, survivors clinging to rooftops in desperate pleas, their cries a stark reminder of our need for stewardship and unity to heal the planet's wounds. Economic collapse loomed large, a consequence of unchecked greed that eroded the moral fabric of societies, exposing the fragility of material pursuits. I saw markets crashing, banks failing, families losing homes, as wealth hoarded by a few left the many in despair, their trust in systems shattered. Yet, within this darkness, a glimmer of hope emerged, communities banding together, returning to simple faith and mutual support, their resilience a testament to the strength found in shared humanity and spiritual renewal. A spiritual battle intensified, unfolding in the unseen realms where darkness whispered seductive lies of self-sufficiency and despair, convincing souls that faith was folly and love a weakness to be overcome. I witnessed leaders corrupted by power, manipulating masses with falsehoods that divided neighbors and friends, their influence spreading like a shadow over the land. Yet, Jesus showed me a counterforce, a great awakening stirring where revived faith and love could conquer fear, turning the tide of this spiritual war with light piercing through the gloom. These trials will test every soul, Jesus said calmly, his voice a steady anchor amid the swirling visions. But through mercy and prayer, you can transform them into opportunities for renewal. His words carried a promise, not of escape, but of empowerment, urging me to prepare by living in love and without judgment, a call to action rooted in the compassion I'd felt in his presence. The scenes shifted, showing how each event, war, disaster, collapse, and battle, could be met with faith, offering a path to redemption if humanity chose to align with divine love. By 2025, the first signs of these events would emerge, subtle but growing, like cracks in a dam before the flood. I saw tensions in the Middle East escalating, small skirmishes igniting larger fires, a prelude to the war he'd foretold. Prayer circles formed in homes and churches, their quiet strength a bulwark against the coming storm, a reminder that Collective faith could soften the blows of conflict and foster peace talks where weapons failed. The natural disasters intensified, earthquakes shaking fault lines I'd trained near, floods breaching levees in places I'd visited on leave. I saw the Pacific coast battered, yet communities rallied, sharing resources and prayers, their unity a beacon of hope amid the wreckage, showing how stewardship could mitigate nature's wrath if embraced with love and care. Jesus pointed to these acts, saying, "Your hands can rebuild what nature takes, guided by faith." The economic collapse began with whispers of recession, then roared into a crisis, banks toppling like dominoes, families in tents where homes once stood. But I saw people sharing meals, churches opening doors, faith rekindling trust, proving that material loss could lead to spiritual gain if hearts turned from greed to generosity. A lesson in resilience, he emphasized with a gentle nod. The spiritual battle grew fiercer, darkness spreading through media and leaders' words, sowing division like weeds in a garden. Yet, pockets of light appeared, small groups praying, testimonies spreading hope, a revival igniting souls. Jesus smiled, "Love's light will prevail if you nurture it with prayer, turning despair into strength." The visions showed this awakening as a counterbalance, a spiritual army rising to meet the dark with love's enduring power. As the timeline extended into late 2025, the events intertwined, war fueling economic strain, disasters straining resources, and spiritual battles testing resolve. Yet, each crisis offered a choice, turn to fear or to faith. I saw cities rebuilding with sustainable designs, communities thriving on equity, wars giving way to dialogues, all born from the love and prayer he championed as the antidote to chaos. "If humanity heeds this call," Jesus said, turning to me with eyes reflecting both pain and potential, "the future can shift from destruction to restoration. But if ignored, shadows will deepen." His gaze held a challenge and a hope, urging me to act as a catalyst, to live the love I'd experienced, shaping a world aligned with divine mercy through my witness and faith. The revelations lingered, imprinting on my soul a profound urgency to share these truths, to awaken others to the power of prayer and love in preparing for and averting the calamities ahead. Each vision, war, disaster, collapse, battle, carried a lesson, a call to transform fear into action, ensuring that the light of faith could guide humanity through the storms of 2025 and beyond. Suddenly, a gentle pull tugged at my spirit, like a soft current drawing me back from the radiant garden where I'd found peace with Jesus. His smile remained warm and knowing, his eyes reflecting a purpose that steadied my soul. "It is not yet your time, David," he said, his voice a calm anchor amid the fading light. "Return and share what you've seen. Help others see the light in their darkness, the love that conquers all fears." His words carried a mission, urgent yet filled with kindness, a call to carry his truth back to a world I'd left behind. The visions of future trials and hope began to fade, the garden's colors softening like a sunset bidding farewell. And my heart ached to stay in that sacred space, yet his assurance filled me with courage to face what lay ahead. I felt my essence plummet, a rush like falling through clouds after a high-altitude jump, pulling me back to the confines of my wounded body. I gasped awake in the hospital, machines beeping wildly around me, a chaotic symphony of life reclaiming my breath. Doctors stood frozen, their faces etched with disbelief, charts trembling in gloved hands as one shouted, "He's back!" I'd been clinically dead for 15 minutes, they later told me, a miracle defying all odds. My chest throbbed under tight bandages. A dull ache pulsed in my head, where stitches sealed gashes, but the fire of spiritual awakening within me dwarfed the physical pain. A light I carried from the garden into the sterile room's antiseptic air. Maria was there, her face streaked with tears that glistened under the fluorescent lights, her hands gripping mine as if I might vanish again. Her eyes, red from hours of worry and prayer, widened with a mix of relief and lingering fear. "David, oh thank God you're alive," she sobbed, her voice breaking with emotion I'd rarely heard. I squeezed her hand, my throat too raw to speak, but my heart whispered gratitude for her steadfast love. The kids rushed in moments later, Carlos's usual bravado crumbling as he buried his face in my shoulder, Sophia clinging to my arm, her drawings forgotten in her joy, their hugs anchoring me to this second chance at life. But I was changed, reborn in a way that no words could fully capture. My spirit transformed by the encounter with Jesus. The ordinary worries that once consumed me, mortgage payments, deployment schedules, petty arguments with Maria, faded into insignificance against the truths I'd witnessed. The visions of war, floods, and spiritual battles lingered like echoes, yet they were overshadowed by the promise of revival through faith and love, a beacon that now guided my every thought. I felt a burning mission, not born of duty as a Marine, but of a deep, selfless love, to share what I'd seen and help others find the light Jesus had shown me, turning my life from routine service to a higher purpose of awakening souls. The hospital days stretched into a blur, filled with medical tests, hushed conversations among doctors, and the curious glances of nurses who called my survival a miracle. I spoke softly of the peace beyond death, my voice weak but steady, and Maria listened, her initial skepticism giving way to openness as I shared fragments of my journey. "I saw him, Maria," I whispered one night, her hand warm in mine. "He showed me a love that changes everything." She didn't fully grasp it yet, her nod hesitant but sincere, and I knew my story, often dismissed as a dream, would face doubt. Yet the clarity of his voice and the weight of his mission drove me to share it, skepticism be damned. Once home, the old routine felt foreign. The garage where I had tinkered now, a shadow compared to the eternal garden. Yet, I returned to Camp Pendleton, not just for duty, but to connect with my unit. I listened to their stories, fears, losses, hopes, offering kindness where I'd once been gruff, my heart open to their struggles. I began speaking at the base chapel, a place I'd rarely visited, its pews filling as I shared my near-death experience, not preaching, but testifying. I died, I'd say, voice firm, and Jesus showed me love stronger than fear, prayer our bridge to it, my words sparking tears and questions. My testimony resonated, drawing veterans and families who shared their own burdens, PTSD, broken homes, lost faith, and I listened, offering the mercy I'd felt from Jesus. I started writing, first journal entries, then a small booklet about my encounter and the 4 events, aiming not for fame, but to reach those lost in darkness. I spoke at churches beyond the base, Maria and the kids sometimes joining, their support grounding me as we traveled. Carlos asked about God, his soccer games now ending with quiet prayers, while Sophia drew glowing figures, her crayons echoing the garden's hues. Maria, once doubtful, began praying with me, our evenings filled with talks of faith that deepened our marriage, old tensions replaced by understanding. I taught my family love as a healing force, not just a feeling, guiding Carlos and Sophia with faith over fear. The visions of 2025's chaos, wars, disasters, moral decay, pushed me to act, believing prayer could avert the worst and foster a revival of compassion. By mid-2025, my story spread beyond California, letters arriving from strangers thanking me for hope amid despair, a ripple from the garden's light. I joined veteran support groups, helping the homeless, visiting addicts, showing them the love I'd seen. Each act felt like planting seeds from that divine garden, each prayer a ripple against the storms ahead. Jesus' warning of a turbulent world after 2025 echoed, but his promise of mercy as our guide inspired me. My encounter wasn't just mine, it was a gift to share, a beacon illuminating paths for others, a call to live with love as my new purpose, saving souls through faith and compassion. The impact grew, with community projects forming, food drives, prayer circles, where I led with the mercy I'd learned. Maria organized nursing support for veterans. Carlos coached younger kids with patience. Sophia shared her drawings to comfort others. Our home became a hub of hope, its walls echoing with laughter and prayers. I trained others to spread the message, mentoring young Marines to lead with love, not just orders, building a network of light against the darkness foretold. By late 2025, as the first signs of Jesus' predictions emerged, tensions abroad, weather shifts, I felt urgency intensify. I spoke at rallies, wrote more, my voice a steady call to prayer and unity. The kids grew in faith, Maria's strength shone, and our bond deepened, a family transformed by love's power. My life, once defined by combat, now saved through sharing. A soldier turned messenger of divine hope, ready to face whatever came with the light I carried forward.